cheating on your wife on her birthday!" I sat there stunned as my wife walked out onto the dance floor with a man. Had I really heard her words correctly? Or had I had too much to drink, and it became unclear to me what was really coming from her? It was Friday night, Sally's birthday, and we went out to celebrate. We went to the landing strip and settled in for an evening of drinking and dancing. For me, it was drinking. For Sally, it was dancing. A mine explosion in the first Gulf War had put an end to my easy fantasy stumbles. But Sally loved to dance, so I put up with it, tempered my jealous nature, and let her dance with whoever asked. Sally was in a good mood, and I thought that was good, since things hadn't been going well for us lately. But the bombshell she'd planted on me said that her good mood didn't suit me, not one bit. Even if she doesn't live up to her words, the fact that she said them isn't going anywhere. The Gulf War gave me another problem besides a sore leg. It gave me some form of love dysfunction that the doctors had no way of identifying. They couldn't find any physical cause for the problem, so they assumed it was mental. But so far, the main doctors hadn't found anything either. From the way they talked, I was under the impression that I was the only known case of what I had. The problem was that the condition would come and go. It went on like that for the last 10 years, and I had just about resigned myself to the fact that every 8 months or so I would be out of commission for 2 or 3 months. And although my wife Sally was not happy about it, she too had learned to live with it. We managed it for a little over 9 years, and then it all went downhill from there. The 8 months of good times ended and the layoffs began, but this time they lasted longer than 2 or 3 months. It had been 14 months since I had last been able to meet Sally's needs. The last 8 months had been really bad. Sally was constantly irritated and finding faults in everything I did. She would get mad at me for some little thing, then apologize the next day, and within an hour she would be on me for something else. I knew what was the matter. I knew why she behaved the way she did, and I did my best to put up with it. But I am only human, and now and then I would bark back at her, and then the house would get very cool for a while. We were just in one of those cold periods when I decided to take Sally to a dance in honor of her birthday. Things were off to a good start. We were no strangers to the landing strip, and many of the regulars knew the circumstances under which I sat sipping my drink while Sally danced the night away. So it was no surprise that as soon as we sat down at the table, a guy showed up and asked Sally to dance. The first hour passed, and it was business as usual, with Sally on the dance floor almost constantly. But then things started to change a bit. I noticed that most of the dances she was dancing with the same 3 guys, and then I started noticing some things I hadn't noticed before, like how close she danced with them, where their hands were, and how she reacted to it. She wasn't doing anything to stop or slow them down. The set ended, the band left for a break, and I waited for Sally to come back to our table to ask her what she'd been up to. But Sally didn't come back to our table. She went and sat at a table with 3 guys she had been dancing with. Soon they were laughing and talking. I saw one of the men put his hand on her leg, but she didn't push it away, but turned and looked at me and smiled a sly smile. After a few minutes, she got up, walked over to our table and said, "I think I'm not going home with you tonight." "What?" "My friends want to have fun with me, and since you can't, I've decided to do it." She turned and walked back to the 3 men. The band started playing again. She pulled one of them up and walked out onto the dance floor. I sat there looking at her and wondering if she had lost her mind. The song ended and she and the guy walked back to the table and sat down. When I saw the man she had just danced with run his hand up her skirt, I had had enough. I got up, walked over to the table, and told Sally we were leaving and to get her purse. "I told you I'm not going home with you. My friends want to have fun with me, don't you guys?" They all smiled, and I said, "Okay, take your pick." I reached over her shoulder and grabbed my purse, opened it, and pulled out my key ring. I tossed the purse into her lap, took the key ring, took the house key off of it, tossed the rest of the keys onto the purse, and stepped away from her when she said, "What are you doing? Why did you do that?" I didn't answer her and walked out of the bar. I got in my car, started it, and waited about 5 minutes to see if she would get out. When she didn't get out, I drove the car across the street, parked in the supermarket parking lot, and sat down to watch the bar parking lot. Maybe 5 minutes later, Sally got out and walked around the parking lot looking for me, and when she didn't find me, she went back to the bar. Half an hour later, she came out with one of the guys she'd been sitting with, and they got in the car. I expected to see her start up and pull out of the parking lot so the man could drive Sally home, but nothing happened. From my seat, I couldn't see the car, so I continued to sit and watch. After about 20 minutes, the man got out of the car and went back to the bar, and after a few more minutes, a second man came out from behind a table and headed for the car. Another 20 minutes passed, and I saw him go back to the bar and a third man come out. By then I knew what was going on, but as they say, seeing is believing. I waited a minute or two and then got out of the car, walked across the street to the bar's parking lot, and moved to where I thought I could discreetly observe what was going on. I found a spot behind the car parked next to them from where I could be seen and heard. I heard Sally's voice and saw that she was naked to the waist. She was having sex with one of the men. After he finished, he asked her, "Who do you want next?" "No one, baby, at least not tonight. I have to get cleaned up and then you have to take me home." "Are you going to be okay?" "He'll be pissed, but I can handle him." "When can we do this again?" "Call me at work and I'll think about taking a long lunch break. Now let's get going. I really need to get home." I walked back to the car, drove to the house and made sure the house was locked, windows and doors tight, then sat down and waited. About half an hour passed, the car pulled up to the house, I heard the door slam, and a minute later the front door rattled open as Sally tried to open it. Another minute later, the same thing happened to the back door. Another minute passed, and then the doorbell rang. I ignored it, and it rang again, and then again. Finally, Sally started pounding on the door, and I got up, went and opened it. "What do you want?" "I want to come in." "I don't think so. There's no room in my house for a traitor." "What are you talking about?" "Just go away, Sally. Go have fun with your new friends." "Come on, baby. All I did was try shock therapy on you. I thought it might get you back to normal." "Nice try, Sally, but I don't believe you. I'm taking your stuff out of the house and into the driveway tomorrow." And I started to close the door in front of her. "Let me in." "No, Sally, I'm not letting you in." "Where am I supposed to go at this hour?" "Not my problem, Sally. You're the one who said you wouldn't go home with me. Go find your 3 friends. Maybe they'll let you stay with them." I closed the door in her face, made my way to the living room and sat down to wait for the next act. Sally banged on the door, swearing and yelling until the neighbors got tired of the noise and called the police. They knocked on the door, asked what was wrong, and I told them I had locked her up for cheating on me with other men. Sally loudly denied cheating, and the police officers asked me to let her in and then deal with the problem in the light of day. "She can only enter this house by court order." The policeman shrugged and told Sally that it was a civil matter, and she would have to hire a lawyer. They then offered to give her a ride to the motel. She accepted, and they drove off. Everything up to that point had been an act to buy time. Now that Sally was gone, I figured I had until noon the next day to do what I was going to do. By 7, I had canceled all of our credit cards. By 9, I had cleared out all checking and savings accounts, and by 10, I had rented a U-Haul truck. By 12, I had moved everything I wanted out of the house and deposited it in storage, and by 1 o'clock, I was settled into a motel across town. The house was fully mortgaged, with a first and second mortgage, so Sally could have it all she wanted. I wouldn't pay for it anymore, and she wasn't making enough at her job to make the payments, so eventually it would be foreclosed on. It would hurt my credit, but before that happened, I'd trade in my car for a new one, get a couple credit cards in my name only, and my credit score would still be good when I found an apartment to rent. On Saturday, Sally called my cell phone half a dozen times, but I didn't answer the phone. One time she reached me at an unfamiliar number, but as soon as I heard her voice, I hung up immediately. On Sunday, she called me 11 times, but I ignored her. On Monday, after coming home from work, I found her sitting on the hood of my car. She began to lash out at me. "Don't you think you're being a little unreasonable?" "No, I don't. In fact, I'm proud of the way I handled it. I didn't go on a rampage." "You had no reason to rage, and you had no reason to lock me in the house. I didn't do anything. All I did was try to see if I could do something to get you back on track. I was desperate, baby. 14 months without sex was killing me. Maybe what I was trying to do seems a little drastic to you, but I swear to you, honey, I didn't do anything to those guys." "I'm sorry, Sally, but I don't believe you. You said you were going to take my stuff out on the road." "I changed my mind. I moved out of the house. You can have it." "You moved out? Why did you do that? When?" "Saturday. I moved out because the house is too big for me to live in by myself." "Why didn't you return my calls and tell me about it instead of letting me spend money on a motel room I can't afford?" "I didn't return your calls because I didn't want to talk to you. And I don't care if you can afford a motel room or not. We can't settle this if we don't talk. As far as I'm concerned, it's already settled. You've had enough of me, and now you can consider me gone." She stared at me for a few moments, then said, "I can see that I'm going to have to leave you alone for a couple days so you can cool off. I'll call you on Wednesday." And she turned to leave. I smiled, thinking, "Oh no, missus, you'll call me much sooner than that." 2 hours later, my cell phone rang. I looked at the display and saw that it was Sally. I had been expecting this call, so I answered it. "What do you need?" "What have you done? The motel won't accept my credit cards. They're saying I've been declined for payment." "No surprise, since I canceled them all so I wouldn't be responsible for your debts. If I were you, I wouldn't write them a check either." "Why? What did you do?" "Cleared the checking account." "What am I supposed to do?" To quote Clark Gable, "Frankly, I don't give a damn." And I hung up the phone. Monday night, I found an apartment close to work and moved in on Tuesday. My cell phone rang constantly on Tuesday and most of Wednesday, and I finally turned it off. On Wednesday, after arriving home from work, I found Sally waiting for me in the parking lot again. "Have you calmed down yet? Can we put this silly misunderstanding behind us? Let's go home, honey. That's where you belong." "No misunderstanding on my part, Sally. I understood you perfectly well when you said you wouldn't go home with me. And when I left, you certainly didn't leave with me. What do I have to do to convince you that I didn't do anything?" "I don't know. Maybe you could have 3 of your friends come to me, look me in the eye, and then tell me nothing happened." "I don't know where to find them. They're just guys I met at the bar." I knew better. I heard her tell one of them to call her at work, and I knew that since he had pinned her once, he would call her to see if he could get more. But I said, "Not my problem, Sally. You made the mess. You clean it up." I got in the car and drove away. 3 weeks went by. Sally called me almost every day trying to get me to come home, and every day I said the same thing. "I haven't heard anything about your lovers yet." "They are not my lovers and never have been." "Okay, then I still haven't heard from your lovers," and hung up. It was Thursday of the 5th week after I moved in when she called me to tell me she had finally found them. Bill is a trucker. He's on a business trip right now and won't be back until 2 weeks from now. Art is out of town now, working construction, and won't be back for another 3, maybe 4 weeks. The only one I've been able to contact is Dan. "Where can we meet?" "It started at the landing strip, so I'll meet him there." "What time should we be there?" "Just him, Sally. I don't want you signaling him when I ask questions. Tell him to come by tomorrow at 8. The next night at 8 o'clock, I was sitting at a table when he walked in. It was the man I had been watching Sally have sex with. He looked around, saw me, headed over to the table and sat down. The waitress came over as soon as he appeared. He placed his order and said, "I understand that you and your wife are having problems." "You could say that." "She said you wanted to talk to me." "Wrong." I told her I didn't believe her story, and she asked me how she could prove to me that she wasn't lying. I told her that if she could get the three of you to look me straight in the eye and confirm her story, I might listen to her. So I don't want to talk to you. She wants you to talk to me. Same thing. It all depends on your point of view. So what do we do? I want you to look me straight in the eye and tell me what happened. Nothing much. She told us you had a fight and she wanted to rub your nose in the wrong way to make you angry. I guess she succeeded? Go on. That's it. She told you she wasn't going home with you and that she was going to the party with us. You left. We drank some more, danced a couple more dances, and then I took her home. That's it? That's all? And he said it all with an honest face. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I probably would have believed him. Did it help? I still need to talk to the other two. Why? They'll say the same thing. All I know is that you told me what you saw. Now that I've heard your story, I'll have questions for the other two. I will talk to them separately and ask each of them different questions, and then compare stories. If I can convince myself that Sally wasn't lying, we can start talking again. Thanks for stopping by. Glad I could help. I headed back to my apartment, but no sooner had I reached it than my phone rang and I answered Sally's call. Did you talk to him? Yeah. And what? Are you going to come home? Not yet, no. I still need to talk to the other two. Come on, honey, they'll say the same thing. Nothing's wrong. I still need to talk to them. Maybe Dan is an experienced liar and he managed to fool me, or maybe the other two aren't as good at lying and I can figure it out. Honey, I need you to come home. Without you, things are going downhill here. I got a notice from the mortgage company that we're behind on our house payment. I don't make enough to pay the house payment and keep the phone, lights, and gas running. You need to come home, baby. We need to put this mess behind us. You keep playing this game, baby, and we could lose the house. You should have thought, Sally, when you were playing your games. I thought you knew me well enough to know how I would react to your actions. I'm telling you again, Sally. You made this mess, and it's up to you to clean it up. I told you what you have to do to try to fix it. Until I talk to the other two guys, nothing's gonna change. Don't call me again until I find two other guys I can talk to. It was 3 weeks before she called me and told me Bill was back in town, and I asked her to meet me at the Strip the next night at 8 o'clock. I met Bill, and it was just like meeting Dan all over again, only Bill didn't know how to lie one bit. I listened to everything he said, pretended to believe him, finished my beer, and went home. No sooner had I walked in the door than Sally was already on the phone. Are you going home already? I still have one more person to talk to. Let me know when he's available. And I hung up. A week later, she called me to tell me that Art, the last of the three, was back, and I had arranged to meet him 2 nights later at the landing strip. I got the same story from him that I had gotten from Bill and Dan, and he turned out to be no better liar than Bill, but I let him sort of convince me that they really hadn't done anything. Before I could even pull out of the bar's parking lot, Sally was already on the phone with me. Are you satisfied now? I think so. Either they're really good at lying or you really didn't do anything. I just need one more thing. What? I need you to go for an STD test. I'm not going to take any chances. You're being completely unreasonable. Maybe so, Sally. But this is my life, and I'm not going to gamble with it. Take the test and then call me. Sally called me 2 weeks later and said she had the test results, and I asked her to fax them to me. She did, and the tests showed she was clean, but I knew it could take 6 or 8 months for HIV to show up. I could have waited a few more months, but I didn't want to drag this case out. 10 minutes after receiving the fax, she called me and asked if I had received it, and I said I had. Please come home. Give me a day or two to think about it. We don't have much time. I received delinquency notices from the first and second mortgage companies. On the first one, we're already 2 months in arrears. I get the feeling, Sally, that you don't need me so much as you want to get the bill payer back in the house. That's not true. I miss you and I need you to be with me. With your absence, life is starting to suck. Then a day or two for me to finally get my act together won't hurt me, right? Call me Tuesday. I spent the weekend at the beach watching all the little cuties run around in their tight bikinis and, God almighty, Mr. Happiness was back. Sally called me on Tuesday. Are you coming home? Yes, I'm coming home. I'm having a busy week at work, so I won't be able to make it until the weekend. I'll be there on Saturday. Thank God. I'll make it up to you, baby. I swear to God I'll make it up to you. The rest of the week went by quickly, and on Friday I packed my bag, unplugged my phone, and spent another weekend at the beach. On Monday, when I got to work, I turned my phone back on, but no sooner had it turned on than I got a call from Sally. What happened? Where were you? I went to the beach this weekend. You said you were coming home. Yeah, but I thought about it and decided I needed something else to calm down. What now, for heaven's sake? It's been a little over 3 months since you told me to go home alone so you could hang with your 3 friends. I think I want to wait another 6 months and make sure you don't have a baby. There was silence on the other end for a few seconds, and then she said, You're an asshole. Why are you doing this to me? What, you want to make sure you're not pregnant? I'm doing this for me, Sally, not for you. I have to get back to work. And disconnected. Smiling, I pressed the number given, and when the person I was talking to answered, I said I was ready. That night, as I drove out of work, a very pissed-off Sally was waiting for me in the parking lot. What is this nonsense? She yelled, waving a handful of papers. What is this, Sally? It's divorce papers. What are you doing? That's a stupid question, Sally, especially since you have the answer right in your hands. I'm divorcing you. The papers say irreconcilable differences, but we both know the real reason is infidelity, don't we? I didn't do anything. Why can't you get that into your head? Because I know you're lying through your teeth, Sally. I didn't just leave and come home that night. I drove the car across the street, parked, and waited to see what you were going to do. I saw you take out those 3 assholes in the car. I stood there watching and listening. I was there when Dan asked you when he could have sex with you again, and I heard you tell him to call you at work and you'd arrange a long lunch break. Her face went pale, and I could see that she was finally admitting she was caught. So if you knew, why didn't you tell me so we could work it out? Sort what out, Sally? Honey, it was a mistake. A big, stupid mistake. But it didn't mean anything. None of those 3 clowns meant anything to me. I love you, and you should know that. I didn't think you'd really leave me there. I knew you'd be waiting for me outside, and a couple minutes after you left, I came out to get in the car with you. I looked all over the parking lot and couldn't believe I wouldn't find you there. I went back inside and tried to talk the guys into giving me a ride home, but they said they wouldn't unless I had a couple more drinks and danced with them some more. Honey, I haven't had sex in over 14 months and I was hurting. Add to that too much to drink and I did something stupid. And yes, I told Dan he could call me at work, but I didn't mean it. I was supposed to stay at his side until he gave me a ride home. I didn't keep in touch with any of them, honey, which is why it took me so long to get to them and get them to talk to you. I've regretted it every minute of every day since. Honestly, baby, I'm sorry, and I'll do anything to make it up to you. I realize now that trying to shock you was a stupid idea, but that's all I wanted to do, honey. Please, you have to believe me. It doesn't matter anymore, Sally. You had sex with 3 guys after you told me to leave without you, and I'll never forget it. Even if I can forgive, I'll never be able to forget, and I'll see it in my mind every time I see you, and there's no way I can live with that. So, if you've already decided you're going to kick me to the curb, why did you put me through the last 3 months? I needed to do something to get back at you. I needed to keep you around long enough to make sure you didn't get a divorce. It's a no-fault state, Sally. It means that in a divorce, all assets are divided 50-50. All we have is the house, and I've dragged this out long enough that you can't find a sugar daddy fast enough, and the house will be forfeited. 50% of nothing is nothing, Sally, but you still have your 3 asshole buddies to party with, so it's not a total loss. Take care of yourself, Sally, and have a happy life. I hope I never see you again. I got in my car and drove away. The end! Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.